All right, looks good. Looks like it's 2 p.m. Eastern Hour Time, so I'll go ahead and do a quick introduction while folks continue to join us from the waiting room. Thanks so much for being with us today. A little departure from our typical bi-monthly training webinars. Today, we're going to talk about the Office of Sponsored Projects Seed Grant Program, where the SURE Resource Center has some funds available on an application-based process for those of you at R16 eligible institutions to perhaps establish or to grow an Office of Sponsored Projects to support research endeavors at your campus. Today is the second informational webinar. We will plan to post both this one and yesterday's session. So if you'd like to go back and view these at a later date, they will be made available. Joining us today is one of our two co-program directors, Dr. Brett Spear. So I'm going to hand the screen over to him and let him talk to you first about the program.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to join us and hear about the Seed Grant Program. And so, as Melissa said, we'll leave plenty of time for questions and answers. But what I thought I'd do, with the expectation maybe that some of you are not too familiar with the SURE Resource Center, is that I want to take a little bit of time and just tell you a little bit about our center and ways that we can help you as well as faculty at your institutions to participate in NIH-funded research, primarily through the SURE program. And then we'll go into more detail and talk about the OSP seed grants. And we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the hour. So just a little some of the ground rules here. Like I said, we want to have time for plenty of Q&A, but we'll save those till the end of the presentation here. So if you could please use the Q&A box to upload your questions, and then at the end we'll just go through those questions. And then if there's time as well, you can also use the webinar chat as another mechanism to ask us questions and get any clarification that's needed. So about the SURE program itself. So this is a relatively new program that was started at the National Institutes of General Medical Sciences, or NIGMS, although many institutes now participate in the program. And the goal here was to really develop and sustain research, faculty-driven research at institutions that generally have not historically not participated a lot with NIH-funded biomedical research. And so they really wanted to expand the number of institutions that participate in this type of research. So the goals of the SURE program is to provide research grant support for faculty. Again, these are standard research grants to drive faculty research. Importantly, to provide students with research opportunities, with the expectation that we've got to continue to train students so that they can enter the biomedical workforce. But one of the somewhat novel aspects of the SURE program is not only just focusing on the faculty themselves, but also to help establish or strengthen the research infrastructure at those institutions to make it easier or more manageable for faculty to participate in this type of research. Now, in terms of the faculty-driven research, there's two types of funding mechanisms through the SURE R16 program. There's the standard SURE program, and this is for faculty who have previously had some research support, whether it's from NIH or other types of institutions, but currently don't have NIH-funded research. And these grants can be for up to $100,000 per year for up to 4 years. And these grants are renewable so that a faculty member can sustain long-term research through this program. And then for faculty who have not had any funded research, have their research funded as a principal investigator, and these generally are younger faculty, but not always, there's the SURE First program. And these are research grants for faculty. For the SURE First, it provides a little bit more funding, $125,000 a year for up to 4 years. These are mentored programs. These SURE First is not renewable, but it can be transitioned into a SURE grant. So I would encourage you to let your faculty know about the SURE and the SURE First programs that are available to them. In terms of the SURE program itself, there's some very defined criteria for whether or not an institution is eligible, and we've listed them here. So, institution is required to have a 4-year degree in some area of biomedical sciences. They may also have graduate degrees. And this is very broad in terms of what a biomedical area is. It could be nursing, it could be behavioral sciences, it could be biology. So pretty broad web of what we're talking about here. But importantly, at least 25% of the undergraduate students must be supported by Pell Grants. And we'll talk a little bit later on about databases that you can use to determine the number or the percentage of students at your institutions that are supported by Pell Grants. And this is something that our SURE Resource Center is more than happy to help you to determine. Alternatively, you might, medical schools or professional schools that were founded specifically to educate students from underrepresented groups are also eligible for the SURE program. The second criteria is that the institution must have less than $6 million in NIH research project grant or RPG funding in each of the last 2 years. This can be calculated using the NIH reporter, which again, we can help you navigate this database if necessary. The third criterion, and this is something that really hasn't come in yet because the program is relatively new, but an institution can have no more than 20 active SURE grants, as well as what are called SC1 or SC3. These are part of the SCORE program, which is being phased out by NIH. Like I said, the SURE program is relatively new, so there aren't institutions that have these many grants yet, but hopefully within a couple of years, this may be criteria that for some institutions. In terms of SURE First applications, there's no limit. Our resource center, which has been, we're in our 3rd year right now, is comprised of a number of outstanding faculty, as well as research administration staff, mainly at the University of Kentucky, but also from other institutions. And I've just shown the names here, but we have faculty that have expertise in a wide range of areas. And we also have some administrative staff that have expertise in proposal development, research integrity, budgetary issues, establishing sponsored projects, programs. So there's a lot of expertise that we have that you're always welcome to reach out to us for whatever needs you might have. In terms of our center itself, these are some of the ways in which we're trying to help faculty and institutions. First of all, through virtual training, we have bi-monthly webinars, such as this one here. We also have 2-day intensive boot camps prior to the 2 deadlines for the R16 programs, mechanisms that we have as well. And all of our webinars and boot camps they're presented live, but then they're posted on our YouTube channel for viewing at later times. We also consult, and we will provide consultation and mentoring, particularly for faculty, but for others as well, with any types of questions you might have about R16 applications. And we are, like I said, we have a broad range of scientific expertise with our faculty, and we're more than willing to help faculty, particularly with their specific aims page, to help put together a really strong specific aims page as they're developing their R16 grant applications. We're also responsible for managing a research conference. These are the SURE biennial conferences. These are for R16 awardees as well as trainees and administrative staff. We had our first one last year at the NIH campus. It went very well, and our next one is expected to be in the summer of 2027. Opportunities for networking and engaging with NIH staff and training in a number of different areas. But our focus today really is to talk about the SEED grant program. And this program is to enhance Office of Sponsored Projects at R16 eligible institutions. From our SURE Resource Center has $250,000 per year that can be awarded on a competitive basis to applicants. And we can award up to $50,000 in direct cost per award. And importantly, these are for Office of Sponsored Projects. These are for helping to strengthen or establish OSPs. This is not intended for faculty support. A lot of times when we think about SEED grants, we think about funds that are used for faculty to develop some data so that they may be able to develop competitive grants for extramural research. But in this case, these are specifically for to strengthen or establish OSPs at eligible institutions. To date, we've awarded almost $1 million to 21 different institutions across the country. And what we've listed here are just where those institutions are throughout the country. And I think what you can see here is that we have pretty good broad geographical distribution all the way from Alaska all the way over to Puerto Rico. And a few of the things I just want to mention here, some of the grants have been awarded to institutions at Embry Straits, such as Montana and Idaho, but also states that have that are not Embry Straits, such as California and Florida. So I'll talk a little bit about the criteria for determining, the competitiveness of different these OSP seed grants here. But I do want to emphasize the fact that grants are given to institutions throughout the country. Geographical distribution is one of the things that we look at, but it's certainly not the only thing we look at. And if you're from a state that already has a seed grant, that does negate eligibility. As you can see here, there's several states, including Arkansas and Kentucky and South Carolina, that have several different institutions that have the seed grants. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the goal of the seed grant program is either to establish or strengthen OSPs, or whatever the equivalent might be at your institution. And if you're eligible for the SURE program, then you're eligible for the OSP seed grant. And as I talked about a few minutes ago, the goal here is to increase the number of faculty and institutions that have the infrastructure to participate in the SURE program. Geographical distribution is something that is something that we're cognizant of. And importantly, increasing the number of students, particularly students who are underrepresented in biomedical research, who are actively engaged in research. So again, grants are up to $50,000 in direct cost. There is no direct costs that are associated with these grants. We only provide support for direct costs. These can be spent out over the time span of 1 year. And importantly, competitive applicants will demonstrate a readiness to complete the proposed project in a single year. And based on the funds that we have available, we anticipate that we will be providing 4 to 6 seed grants to be awarded each year. The applicant lead can be possibly a person who is in the OSP office or the director of an OSP office, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a faculty member who's associated with such an office here. So you can decide for yourself who's going to be the most appropriate person to be the lead for the seed grant application here. Whoever that lead will be was going to work closely with the SURE Resource Center. And this includes quarterly meetings that we have, and then attending the biennial conference that I talked about a few minutes ago. And I will point out that the cost associated with attending the conference is provided by us. So you don't have to worry about putting the cost for the conference into the budget that you prepare. We've tried to make the application relatively straightforward and not too complicated. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we can evaluate the criteria so we can identify the grants that we think are going to be most impactful at their institution. So these are some of the different things, and Melissa's going to go into a little bit more detail in a minute, but there's 2 types of documents that are required. The first is to describe your current office's sponsored projects, or including staffing and budget. And if you don't have an OSP, you can talk about how you're going to develop such an office. I'll talk a little bit about sponsored project activity at your institution, and maybe talk about the shortcomings that you hope to overcome. And this is in a document that's 500 words or less. And then the second document, also 500 words or less, that talks a little bit about the environment and your institution's goals for either establishing or enhancing, sponsored project support. How are these funds going to really help faculty to develop their grants and to maintain NIH-funded research? We also require a letter of support, and this would be from an institutional official, whether it's a dean, provost, vice president for research. And the goal of this letter is to demonstrate their support, certainly for the seed grant itself. But importantly, this letter should describe how OSP responsibilities will be sustained after the grant period ends. $50,000, is not a huge sum of money. The expectation it'll be spent out over a course of 1 year. But we really want to see projects that have some sustainability. So importantly, this letter really should demonstrate in whatever way possible that these, whatever is started through this seed grant is going to continue long term. We also require a budget as well as a budget justification. And this can be very brief, just describing the budgetary items that are being requested and the cost for each of those items. I've listed here some of the allowable costs, R&D, software, travel to meetings for research administrative training, membership in societies, fees for consultants to come in and to look at ways to improve your infrastructure. It can be used for personnel costs to hire or to support personnel in your offices. So a number of different areas, but we also have unallowable costs. So as I said earlier, these are not grants for faculty for scientific projects or other types of faculty incentives. We also can't support, and these are NIH guidelines, we can't provide support for meals or office supplies, or as I said earlier, there's not support for indirect costs. These are only for direct costs themselves. In terms of the criteria, what we'll do is that we will have when the grant applications come in, we will form a panel that's going to be evaluating the grant applications. Sort of similar to sort of standard NIH mechanisms for reviewing grants. So the panel will be convened and they will evaluate the different grants that will come in, looking at how the funds will be used to enhance your OSP, strategies to sustain activity after the grant period ends, as well as the institutional commitment for research. And as I said earlier, the letter from the institutional official can go a long way towards describing these. The appropriateness of the budget. And these are really the criteria that the evaluation will focus on. So the research panel or the panel is really going to look at these types of criteria here. And this is sort of like a first level of evaluation. And based on the scores from that panel, we will then take that information to our steering committee for the SURE program itself. And that steering committee will ultimately determine or decide on the applications that will be funded. And at that second level of evaluation, geographical location will be considered because, again, one of our goals is to ensure broad regional distribution. But again, I would say from your perspective, you should really focus on just putting together the best grant application itself and don't focus too much on the issues of regional distribution. We have a lot of questions from faculty or from applicants about what are the best ways to use the funds or what are we looking for? And I would say that, it's really up to you. You know your institution better than we do. So you know ways in which the funding can most effectively strengthen your research infrastructure. And these are some of the ideas that from what we've seen already. And again, we've talked a little bit about these, whether it's technology or software for grant processing, tracking awards, things like that. Providing research administrators and staff, participation in societies or getting training through societies or other mechanisms, having consultants come in and to evaluate and come up with ideas for strengthening your OSPs at your institution, hiring OSP staff, ensuring compliance with NIH guidelines. So again, a lot of different ways in which the funds could be spent, but really it's up to you to decide, what's the best way for these funds to strengthen your research infrastructure. We've also had questions, if a institution already has a reasonable amount of funding, but still is eligible for SURE, is that institution going to be more competitive, say, for another institution that may just be trying to put together a OSP? And the answer is, it doesn't really matter. What we're looking for are ways in which the funds are going to strengthen the research infrastructure. So there's no bias from our end versus for an institution that's just really getting started versus another one that already has a bit of a track record. Some of the information about this year's grant application. So the application deadline is February 28th. So about I guess a month and a half now, not quite 2 months, will be the deadline. And then in mid-April or so, our committee will convene and the reviews will be carried out to score the applications. And then the secondary review by our steering committee will take place in mid-June and then in mid-May, and then in early June, the applicants will be notified of funding decisions. And that'll give us a couple of months to sort of put all the paperwork together, get the information from you so that we can set up the subawards. And then the anticipated start date then would be September 1st, with the expectation that the funds would be used between September 1st, 2025 and then August 31st of 26. So that's sort of the timeline. There are some expectations. This is a relatively new program at NIH, and the seed grant program is certainly very new and a novel aspect of the SURE program. We want to try to find out ways in which this program is most effectively helping institutions. So some of the expectations for those that receive the seed grants, one is to attend our quarterly Zoom meetings, and these are meetings with the SURE leadership. We've been having these for a couple of years now, and it's a great way for the seed grant recipients not only to interface with us, but also to get to know each other and to sort of share best practices, to share challenges and see ways in which different institutions can help each other as well. We also would like for the institution or the seed grantees to report the number and types of grants that are submitted and reviewed, was scored and funded over the course of that period of time, and also the number of non-NIH grants that have been submitted and funded. And again, we don't need to know the details about all these grants, just sort of the numbers is what is of importance to us. Report the number of faculty who've submitted grants, abstracts, and publications. And a lot of this information we can get from Reporter itself. And finally, to participate in the biennial conference, which we anticipate will take place in 2027. So there is something from your end to help us determine how this seed grant program is working and find sort of best practices from our end as well. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and she'll tell you a little bit more about the application process itself.
Okay. So we have really tried to make the application as streamlined and as easy as possible. And so for the next few minutes, I'll just go through some of the resources that are available to you as you prepare an application. Hopefully you've seen this PDF. It's downloadable from our center website, or if you don't have access yet, you can scan the QR code there on the left to get a copy. But it's really the guidelines for preparing a competitive and compliant application to the program. Much of the information you're hearing today is recapitulated in this document, so it should be a good reference as you work on your application. Embedded in this document, as well as on our website, is a link to the application portal. Just next slide. And so this QR code will take you directly to that portal where you will submit all of the application materials. As Dr. Spear mentioned, the most critical pieces here are going to be those attachments. So the primary narrative, which is the two-part document where you describe your either current OSP or your intended OSP if you're looking to establish a new one. And then what sort of plan you have to address the challenge that you have described. So you'll upload those two pieces as one attachment. Each should be no more than 500 words, so please be concise. Secondly, that letter of support from an institutional leader. And then finally, the budget and justification. Now, we have not asked for any particular formatting on these documents. The main thing is that you share that information so that our reviewers can assess those three pieces. In addition to those attachments, you are going to be asked to provide a little information about whomever you have selected to be your applicant lead. And I know this is quite small, but when you log into the portal, you'll be able to see this very clearly. So tell us who we would be working with if your institution is selected. We are not going to evaluate this person as the PI, so there's no need to submit something like a bio sketch or a CV. We trust that you know who the person that's best fit to lead this effort on your campus is going to be. And then we are just sort of curious about what your current office, if you have one, looks like in terms of staffing, training expectations, that sort of thing. So that information is all maintained internal to center leadership and is not pushed out to the reviewers. So certainly answer those questions. And then once you have uploaded your attachments, you'll hit that blue submit application button and you are complete. You'll see a message up here on the screen that says your information has been received. And then it's just a matter of a little patience while we work to evaluate those applications and make funding decisions. Okay, next slide. So I think for many folks, just ensuring that their institution is eligible for the SURE program and thus the OSPC grant program may be an issue. So we are absolutely happy to do those eligibility checks for you if you'll reach out to us. But if you are familiar with the tools for assessing eligibility, they are linked here, and you're certainly free to do those eligibility checks yourself. Just as a reminder for those who are new to the program, you must use the IPEDS database, which is part of the National Center for Education Statistics website, to check for Pell Grant data. You're going to need to show that either your full undergraduate population or your full-time, first-time degree-seeking student population is at a level of 25% or more Pell recipients. Now, if you happen to be at an institution that was founded with a historic mission to serve minority students, so something like Meharry Medical College is a great example, you don't have to do this piece of the check. On the other side, you need to show that your institution has received less than $6 million in NIH research project grant funding in each of the last 2 fiscal years using the NIH Reporter database. So for this, you're going to use an advanced search. You'll be looking at fiscal years 23 and 24, funding from NIH, and then your non-SBIR, non-STTR research project grant funding. Again, if you have any trouble finding these pieces of data, certainly feel free to reach out to our team, and we can send you links that show you what that data looks like for your institution. Next slide. So the best way to get follow-up questions answered or to have one of our team members perform those eligibility checks is to reach out through any of the mechanisms on the screen here. So we have a fantastic group of regional coordinators. These are faculty at UK and senior key personnel on the SURE Resource Center team. They serve different parts of the country, which are indicated by the map on the screen. So if you navigate to our website, you'll be able to reach out to them directly. So that's one resource. If you'd like to go the route of email, you can also contact our center leadership using the email address on the screen here. So that'll get your question to Dr. Spear, Dr. Murphy, who's not here today, and myself. And then finally, if you'd like to chat in person rather than do the email back and forth, you can join me most Fridays on Zoom, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I hold a weekly office hour, and I'm happy to answer any questions via that avenue. Next slide. I will say that if you're not familiar with our YouTube channel, we have a lot of sessions from the past almost 3 years now, and there are several that are really specific to those working in research administration. I'd like to point out the 2 that are boxed there on the right. For those of you who may have a very small operation or are just looking to establish a new office. Dr. Chris Monahan from Providence College and the most recent past president of Incura provided a session on 3 different strategies for organizing an OSP for success. So I think that one is particularly helpful. Additionally, Dr. Baron Wolf, who is an assistant VPR here at UK, has a session on using data to drive decision-making and research administration. And I would also suggest taking a look at that one as well. Certainly, there are lots of other topics. So maybe you have an office model that's working well, and you're just looking to enhance some aspect of its operations. There might be some other sessions that talk about strategies for those things as well. Next slide. So with that, we'll start with the Q&A box. Share out those questions, and then we'll move over to the ones in the chat. Excuse me. So the first question is about eligibility. It says, our current Pell Grant percentage would qualify us for SURE and the SEED grant program. However, the most updated data in IPEDS is less than 25%. Do we need to wait until next year when IPEDS data contains the qualifying percentages?
You want to, I mean, unless you want to take that one?
So yeah, I would just say that any data that's not public is not something that we or NIH is privy to. So we are going to have to utilize the data that's currently present in IPEDS and Reporter on the other side when making determinations of eligibility. I will say that today, IPEDS seems to be updating the database. So check back, maybe if you looked very recently, and see if that new data has populated over the next few days.
Good.
Okay, next question is asking, can we budget for faculty stipends to participate in trainings on topics like proposal writing, responsible conduct of research, IRB, etc.?
You know, I would say these are probably not going to be looked on favorably by the review panel. You know, these are things that are really, you know, specific for faculty themselves. And even though they, you know, these are useful training for faculty here, it doesn't really help the institution as a whole. So I think things that are, you know, specifically to help faculty themselves, I would try to steer away from those and to come up with programs that are more global. Now coming up with something where, you know, having an OSP provide, you know, training for all the different faculty could be something that could be useful. Or to provide all the faculty with ways, you know, to develop IRBs or IQ proposals. But for budgeting specifically for faculty stipends, I would say would not be a good use.
Okay. The next question is asking, is there a goal for how many NIH grants the institution should try to get?
Well, no, there's not a goal. Again, this is very institution dependent. And there might be some institutions based on the goals of the institution and the capacity that faculty have to carry out research that the number of grants might be much greater than on other institutions. So that's really institution dependent. From our perspective, you know, this is not an important criteria that we're looking at. And like I said earlier too, you know, whether or not you have a relatively robust, you know, research infrastructure and a grant portfolio versus you're an institution that's really just trying to get things started. You know, that is something that, again, we've seen this. We've done several of these rounds of reviews already. You know, I think the reviewers, that's not really an important criteria. They're really looking at the types of applications that are going to have the biggest impact at your particular institution.
Okay, the next question is asking if historically Black colleges and universities are required to provide Pell percent information. So I would say, first of all, we don't ask any applicant to do that. When the applications are received, I'll do eligibility checks for all, just to be sure. I don't think I've ever seen an HBCU that didn't already cross that pay threshold, so I doubt that there is a concern there. The R16 NOFOs do state, however, that you must enroll at least 25% of your undergrads, either your total or your full-time first-time degree seeking, or belong to the HBCU or TCU category. So I think you're fine either way. Next question is asking, we have a program for staff who are funded 50% by OSP in order to have OSP-like staff within the college. Would trainings for them be an eligible expense?
Yes, that would be an appropriate expense where you're really helping to train the staff. Because again, those staff are going to be able to help any and all faculty, presumably, at your institution. So that would certainly be certainly a justified and allowable expense.
I would say that's probably one of the most popular expense types we see, in fact.
That's true too.
So those are the questions I see at the moment. Certainly feel free to populate any more that you have. Or we have enough time, we could take some questions by unmuting if folks want to raise their hand for that purpose.
Stop sharing.
Oh, here's a new one. Will the seed grant support a salary for a position we lost due to changes in our structure?
The answer is yes. That would certainly be an appropriate cost. Now, that would be something where if that's how you're going to propose to use the funds during the 1 year of the seed grant, the reviewers would probably want to see something in that letter from the administrative letter from the dean or the VPR or whomever that's going to talk about how that position would be sustained after the year. So it's certainly allowable, but again, this is an issue where sustainability is going to be important criteria.
Are you seeing any questions that we've missed?
I don't see anything myself.
Okay, well, we'll give folks a few more seconds while we're waiting to see if any others populate. I'll just remind folks that we are recording today. We recorded yesterday, which included some different questions in the Q&A. So you're certainly welcome to watch that if it appeals before you prepare your application. And again, we are very excited about the SURE program and absolutely willing and happy to help. If you have questions along the way about your eligibility or whatever about submitting an application, feel free to reach out via any of those avenues that we mentioned earlier. And so if there are no other questions, we appreciate you spending some time with us and look forward to seeing your applications.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.